Hello, my name is Lou,
And I'm Katie.
and you're listening to Files from the Other Side. This week, we're opening up the files on
The tarot.
the tarot.
The tarot. The tarot.
The tarot. Before we got started today, though, I did want to say to our audience of Five Whole People, thank you so much for letting us have another break from podcasting. Because
We're back.
Well, yeah, and we're better than ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I moved.
I got married.
Yeah. That's congratulations. I'm
Thank
super
you.
stoked for you. I mean, I've already said that to you a few times because we've talked several times. They don't know that though. Now they
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, well, after the wedding, I was so tired. I was so burnt out from so many things, and I was like, I don't think I can even record like the week after. So it's a couple
We were
weeks
slated
later.
too.
Yeah, and you were moving like the literal whole time. So I was like, what are we gonna do?
I
You
had
know?
so much more shit than I even thought. Sorry, I'm not gonna cry about it in front of you guys. I've already cried about it.
It's funny too, because like after the wedding, we bought a bunch of house stuff too for like our house to make it a little bit better. And so we still have this like big bookshelf that Soph got us for the wedding to put together and move stuff around. So I'm excited at the prospect of having better, newer shit to hold my other shit.
My other shit. Everybody in my family was always like, what do you want for Christmas? And my mom and I are both like, more things for me to fucking clean? You think I want more fucking things that I have to clean? Like, no. Fuck that. We do experiences. We got our nails done this year for Christmas.
Oh my god, I love that.
Yeah, we did afternoon tea a couple years ago.
Shout out to Shayla and Cheyenne, who also got us a gift certificate for Manny's or Petty's with their salon for the wedding too. That was
Classic.
That was a good gift because I haven't gotten a Manny or a Petty in so long. Like, look at these sad nails.
Oh my god, and the massage. You get the paraffin wax dip and you're like, ooh,
And I get to hang out with my friends too. Like, they
Also
work there.
that.
That's sick.
Also,
So.
that's exciting.
Was there any cool other wedding gifts? Oh, my uncle gave me this gigantic rock, and it's like smoky quartz, it looks like a really dark crystal quartz coming out of like a white rock. It's
That's
so
sick.
cool.
I've seen
could
it.
show it to you, but I don't want to get up.
No, it's take my word for it, dear listeners. It is awesome.
I
It
thought
was
it was a
sick.
sick gift.
I said sick, and she heard dick and was like, "Hey, this is a cool present." And I was
I
like,
remember
"No."
that.
I said sick. I also like rocks, man. Rocks are cool, man, especially when they're sparkly like that. Like,
It's just funny because I didn't hear you correctly at all in that moment. I thought you were calling my uncle a dick for giving me a
Yeah.
rock. And I
You were
was
like,
it's a pretty
"No."
rock.
it's a pretty rock. I thought you liked rocks too.
I don't know who wouldn't like that rock. It was so beautiful. It was big too. The bigger ones are cooler to get from them because you know that they found that. Like, they're geologists, so you know they
Yeah.
went somewhere special to find it, and also like you paid a pretty penny for it. And there's also this apparent tradition, and I don't know if it's like white people or white people from where my white people are from, or if it's just like
A family thing.
a family thing. I don't know. I truly don't know where this comes from, but my mom cried giving me a silver dollar from some weird year, but her dad had given it to her and Jim when they got married. And so she was giving it to me because my dad is no longer with us, so she didn't feel like she had to keep it. So she gave it to me and Haley on the day she was doing our hair and we got married, right? So then we opened the gifts from my aunt and uncle, like the rock, right? And there's another this year's silver dollar coin in there. So I have two, like one's like more antique, and then the other is like this year's brand new silver dollar coin.
I feel like this is a thing, though. I don't know.
Yeah,
Is
but
this
like
a
what,
thing?
like yeah, right? But like where does the
Why?
thing come from and why?
Silver
Like I
dollar.
get why you would want to mark the year, but I don't think the coin that my mom and dad had marked the year.
Like, I guess this is a thing, but I don't know where it comes from. Like,
The dowry, I don't know.
That
It makes
may-
me
maybe.
laugh though. It makes me laugh. I looked up the cost of like a current silver dollar like that, Because we were thinking, oh, it's just like a silver dollar, like it costs $1 or whatever. We looked them up and they're going for like $60 a pop. And I was like, holy fuck, what? Not that we were gonna sell it or anything. It's just I just didn't understand like the concept of this thing. I was just like, it's such a weird gift, and so, like, because you know it's supposed to mark the memory and not necessarily be a gift itself.
Yeah, it's like a souvenir almost.
Yeah. And also, I looked hot in the tiara, so that was the most fun I had with the wedding was the tiara wearing.
Your dress looked crazy hot. The tiara.
I looked crazy hot. Yeah.
You looked.
It was probably the hottest I've ever looked, and hallelujah for that, I guess.
You look hot now. But yeah, no, that dress, the tiara, I love that tiara. I didn't get to be there because I was moving, and
it's okay.
It broke my heart.
Okay, well, should we get into the history of tarot then?
Sure. Yeah. Fuck, we're here to do that, aren't we? We already had our own personal catch up on the wedding. I mean, I have some super just like basic info about the tarot. It was originally a card game, just like a regular playing card game, from Italy in like the 14th century. I mean, it was around as a card game for a couple centuries before Jean-Baptiste Alliette created the divination version. Like he started to he like assigned like meanings and stuff like that to them. The book is actually called Recreating Yourself Through Cards, called the Tarot, which I think is fascinating in light of both of our personal journeys with the tarot, like that it's recreating yourself. Because I think it's safe to say we both found it in some kind of a recovery. And then, so that work was published in 1783, and then actually 1790 was when he like designed the ones, like specifically the divination set, and it was really interesting.
That's not the tarot though. Now though, it was Arthur Waite who did that, right?
Yeah. He's Rider-Waite's based off of this,
right? But the art and the words come from Waite.
The words come from Jean-Baptiste. His version had like death and stuff like that, and had the.
I guess I'm just thinking of like the English word.
Maybe.
I don't know. Speculation. I
didn't look at Rider-Waite because he wasn't the OG, so he's who we base all of our stuff on now. But he that deck was like comes from this one from 1790.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other interesting thing is that, like, alongside the story of the playing cards from Italy, you also get the deck of cards from China. It's just the regular deck of cards, but it's the same concept of, instead of using them for the game, they use them for divination. So it's when I'm taught and when I'm asked by like a lot of tarot professionals, like the quiz question, like, where did tarot come from? A lot of it doesn't have an origination point, because it was kind of one of those things where it was happening around the world at the same time. People were like, oh, we can use this as a divination tool, and then it became a divination tool kind of like cross-culturally, like, which is why I point out the Arthur Waite stuff, because the art, I mean, Pamela Coleman Smith, is a figure that's forgotten when we talk about the Rider-Waite Smith deck. We should use Smith at the end of that, because without her artist interpretation that's on this deck of cards that we know it to be today, we would have just the words, and it would mean less than it does now. Her art means a lot to what gets interpreted after they have tarot in a more widespread sense. And like, when you think about the times of like spiritualism, which we have an episode on,
guys, it's great.
It is great. Like we didn't have the internet. There wasn't like weird ways to learn tarot. It was like you had to come to a deck and like know somebody who could teach you, or find one of the obscure books that was written. You could afford it and you could read or whatever, right? Like I was gonna say was like from 1789 to like, let's say the late 1800s. A lot of time goes by between then.
Yeah.
to where then the spiritualist movement kind of gets a hold of it and is like, this is a very great occultist tool. Like, it
Yeah.
was more common to use cards for a lot of different ways. And then I think when Arthur Waite and Pamela Coleman Smith, when they decided what the deck was going to be standardized, I think that's when you get the sort of like woo-woo shit that comes after. That like tarot is definitively different than playing cards, and like there's an entirely different process to doing it, an entirely different way to interact with a deck of cards than just sitting down and playing with your friends. But it's hilarious to me because at the end of the day, like, tarot's like a really good slumber party trick. Like, it's like you can have a group of friends and you can read your tarot and it can be just like the game you want it to. It doesn't have to be that serious. Like,
No, literally, I brought my tarot cards. I brought I think I brought an oracle deck and a tarot deck to my 5-year anniversary dinner of sobriety. And fucking Katie laughed, and like she was like, it wouldn't be like a date with Katie if we didn't read our tarot cards. Like it is like my fun sleepover trick. Like I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna read our tarot card. We did that on my 30th birthday.
yeah.
Fucking one of my coworkers like came and he just like read a card for, like, he's like learning and like is new, and I don't do a ton of drawing for people, and I also started to do like 3-card draws like I'm used to, and then he was just doing 1-card draws, and then I was like, what do I have in store in my 30s? And he pulled the Queen of Pentacles, and I was like,
do you want to hear something hysterical? So the last time I was in the psych ward, bless. The last time I was in the psych ward, I got so bored. Okay, here's the thing: is this was one of the times I was in the psych ward without being psychotic, so it was pretty like normal. You know what I mean? I was just really depressed, and so I was really bored. And I like went into the room and I noticed that they had like this box of playing cards, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to sort through this gigantic box of playing cards to find a deck.
Yeah.
There were like 8 decks mixed up, right? So
Jesus God.
So I had these like people in the psych ward. Basically, when they saw what I was doing, they started helping me. Especially this girl who like thought I was cool in the psych ward. She would like help me do stuff. She's like, what are you doing? And I was like, like trying to find a deck. And she's like, well, what are you gonna do? You gonna play cards? You gonna play Go Fish or something? And I was like, no, I was just gonna read some tarot. And she's like, how are you gonna read tarot with the playing cards? And I was like, well, I'm just gonna assign them the suits and ignore certain other major arcana parts. Like I was just gonna fuck around, you know? And she was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Can you teach me how to read tarot? And I was like, girl, we are A, in the psych ward, and B, this is playing cards. So I cannot, but I will try my best to do tarot here in the psych ward.
You could do broad strokes. Like, again,
but it was funny because like at a certain point, I had like several people around me like wanting, like listening to the readings and wanting readings, and we were in the fucking psych ward, dude. It looked weird. And then I remember this guy, and this gets me so bad. This guy, he was sitting across, and he was just this incel of a motherfucker. He was like, oh, are you like one of those like fortune teller ladies who pulls up in those like trailers and like rips people off? And I literally looked at him. I was like, you've been sitting here for 20 minutes, and have I taken anyone's money, and have I ripped anyone off? And he was like, no, I guess not. And I was like, you fucking asshole. I was like, you don't understand things at all. And which brings me to a point I actually wanted to make about something tarot adjacent, because it can be adjacent to a lot of things besides tarot. But fortune telling and divination are marginalized ways of knowing. Meaning that like usually come from people who seek power to empower themselves because the system has disempowered their situation. Which is kind of like what Katie said when she alluded to like recovery and our journeys to tarot. One thing I was taught in my Tarot for Liberation class, taught by Saray Jarrell Johnson, he tried to teach us, well, he taught us the difference between fortune telling and divination. Which I think is
I don't know this, so please enlighten me.
Yeah, it was like an interesting way to think about how you go and read. So, because divination is like a way of knowing, and so is fortune telling. Fortune telling predicts the future. divination looks for knowledge of the future through unorthodox ways of knowing. So it's like,
Okay.
it's almost through another source, but like, here's ultimately what Saray says. He says, divination looks at possible outcomes for your situation. Fortune telling tells you the most likely outcome of your situation. Can you fortune tell with tarot? Yes.
Sure.
Because you can ask that question and be like, I am divining to find the most likely. So it's just that, like, divination gives you a lot more free will. There's a lot more possibility. And it's idealistic. Like,
Yeah.
just fortune telling kind of tells you, like, as is, a little bit, like, this is what's going to happen. So it doesn't mean that through both ways of knowing, like, can't change somehow as things unfold either.
Yeah.
Like, I think we know that about fortune telling itself, but I think to knock fortune telling and say, oh, this is only a form of divination is a xenophobic, racist rhetoric. Because it doesn't include a rich history of people who have been doing it for fortune telling for like ages.
Yeah.
And communities who still use it for fortune telling. And I think when we talk about the tarot, a lot of the time that self-care talk gets in the way of, like, but it is about deeply knowing the truth. It is about finding the truth, either within or without, wherever. But you can't erase certain parts of it just because they don't fit into your narrative either.
Interesting. I didn't know that there was about the distinction between divination and fortune telling. Or that wouldn't have been what I guessed what it was. And like, even if you don't think, like, I think that I probably use it. Like, I think we all use it as divination in my life, like, even when we're doing the slumber party trick. But even if it's not, like, it can still just be a useful tool for fucking self-reflection. Like, it can just, like, that's the truth within, right? Like, it can just be, like, a way of, because, like, there's times when you draw and you're like, I don't feel like that at all, and then you, like, think about it for a second, you mull it over, and you read the meanings, and you're like, oh, wait, you know what? Maybe that's coming up in this part of my, like, I found it early on in my recovery from alcohol, and I've, like, I don't know where I'd be without it. Like, because it was, like, a way for me to, like, know truths about myself that I was too scared to actually, like, it was a softer way to face them head on. You know what I mean? Like, it was, like, a way to ease into some of the work that I needed to be doing.
Like, when you're given, like, flash themes, it's, like, not as overwhelming then to be like, okay, I'm tackling just this.
Yeah.
And not all the shit that's going on in my head. Because I think there's like, the divination part of knowing is like, okay, you know every day anything. Like, I know that my cats are sleeping right now. I know that the house is cold. I know that I just ate some French fries.
I just had mashed potatoes. That's so wild. We both had potatoes.
And then there's the difference in knowing deeply something. Like, when you see that 3-card pull and you're like, oh shit, like, that tapped into something.
Yeah.
And to know that it was the 3 out of the 78 options.
Right.
And I think the more you get to know the tarot, the more you realize how truly random the pull becomes every time. There's not a rhyme or reason to a lot of it, except for the rhyme or reason.
Right? I was going to say, except for, like, it's so wild. So I have a couple of oracle decks, and I was doing, I have, like, this one that was, like, daily rituals oracle deck, and then, like, it's, like, something, like, you do, like, and it gives you, like, a little exercise, and I'm like, meditate with this, think about this, for gratitude, and I also have this new oracle deck called Kuan Yin, which is about, like, she's the bodhisattva of I've heard a lot of different, Kuan Yin's a goddess, she's a bodhisattva, but her deal is empathy and compassion. She's
Right.
thousand-eyed, thousand-eared, thousand-armed Kuan Yin, so that she can hold all of the world's suffering at once. But it was crazy. I don't think that the tarot itself was. I don't think I drew the moon, but the Kuan Yin, both my oracle decks had to do with moon
That's
and I
cool.
was like, man, why? I was reading in my tarot journal. There was one time I drew a card. It was like 3-3. and then 5, and I was like 3/3 is my birthday, and I was like 3/5 is my sobriety date. That's weird. Like, this is a weird. Why?
Yeah,
Okay.
that leads me into the components of tarot, which there are so many components to tarot that I think one can become overwhelmed with the fact that there are 78 cards and so many differences and how to kind of read it. But like, well, I think I have a solution for that. But to get into the components of tarot, the first thing you have to acknowledge is that there are the major arcana cards and the minor arcana cards. And the major arcana cards are the set of, is it 22 cards, 0 to 21?
Yeah, it's 22.
22 cards that have a major theme. It's like a big word or group
Capital
of words.
T theme.
Yeah, it's a capital T theme. And then the minors are sort of the arcana that tell the story of the theme, but they can represent a theme in and of themselves when put together or arranged in a certain way. And usually when you read a tarot spread, you will want to pay attention to the theme of the major and how the minors support that. But it's not always like the way. It's not always the way. It's just like a good way.
Yeah, I remember like early, like the like major arcana are like one another way to interpret is like major arcana are like the more big life events. Like you can kind of like versus like the minor are kind of more day to day. So like if you have a spread with that don't have any major arcana, which happens to me all the fucking time, it's just about the day to day. Like
yeah. And then depending on your spread too, like what comes up in a major arcana on a certain particular question or like part of your spread, that question then becomes more significant than like maybe the general theme you were asking for anyways. I don't know. It just really depends on your spread there. And it doesn't get easier because there are court cards also. Court cards are really stumping for people. They're like, they're the point that people get to and they're like, I don't know what to do with this court card. And I think I've been that when I've read tarot too. I think sometimes I get lost in the minors and in the majors, but the court cards is where I'm like, ooh, but what do I do with this? The most creative like things come from me though when I start to read a court card that I'm unsure of. But I understand the court cards these days. And the court cards are the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. And I have like a way that I read them. The page, here's how I immediately do it, right, without getting into the sauce of it, is like the page means youth or a young person. The page means a student.
Or messenger. I always think messenger when I see the page, like he's like paging somebody, like
maybe innocence, youth, interns, children, people who are in need of protection.
Interns.
Yeah, it says interns, novices.
Yeah.
The way I see the page is like how you see it, and I think what I'm hesitating to say is it operates a little slower than the knight. The page for me is the messenger in the sense that like where they're traveling, the timeliness doesn't matter as much. And there's great care taken in the journey. Like I have to compare it to the knight then. The knight is going faster. It's like you've been given a job and you need to go there as swiftly as possible.
Going to battle half the time.
Yes, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
That's like where it comes from. It can mean teens, also young adults, travel or apprenticeships. And it can, I don't know, sometimes I take the knights to mean like, movement,
Yeah.
not just travel, but movement generally speaking, which is why the pages are slower. Queens often are about internal power.
Oh, yeah. It was like some
Internal
sort of
reflection.
emotional mastery, some sort of like
emotional control, introverted power, hidden powers, or marginalized powers.
Okay. I like that.
And then the kings, we have this, and it's kind of why you have to read them together, because it's like the pages and knights can go together and the queens and kings can go together. Because on the other hand, the kings are external power, extroverted power, supported power, worldly authority, bosses, founders, and owners. I think after now reading all that stuff, it feels like I understand why court cards are so hard, because like they themselves are like a set part because you have to pair them with the suits, which is the next part, the component to tarot, right? Yeah. Suits, wands, swords, cups, and pentacles. And these court cards fit into those suits in a very specific way that the other numbered cards don't necessarily represent. I see a lot of personalization like in the court cards that you don't get with the other cards. The other cards, I see more of the actionable story. Again, like, I think that because I've learned tarot in such a way that I don't actually think it's that easy to teach. I think it's very much one of those things that as we talk about it, it's more of the personal experience that matters. So I can tell you all this stuff about the suits. I can tell you all this stuff about the court cards and the major arcana. But at the end of the day, when you read, what becomes important and meaningful to you is what is important and meaningful.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, because like you're talking about the knights being like movement and stuff like that, and I have one deck specifically that like the Knight of Pentacles is that is actually not a horse that you ride into battle. Like he is to plow fields like that, and that's what the knight.
Isn't that interesting? Like because even though I say all this shit about movement with the knights, then we get the Knight of Pentacles, which is almost arguably one of the slowest cards. Besides maybe the Page of Pentacles.
Methodical, fucking deliberate, been working for a long time, like.
But you can also see how in the slow movement, you're also being shown the kind of movement that matters to that card. So it's like you can't. When you start to read tarot, it's like a wave of in and out. And that's also just like tells you a lot about divination and the nature of it, how it comes to you, the knowing. Yeah. It's not linear. It's just almost just as random as the shuffling itself.
I was going to say it's actually kind of reminding me the way you're talking about it. It reminds me of when I did my first Estes method and like how who's under like Matt, like, cause I kept getting weird sounds like in vocalizations but you and I both were like, well, that's how Katie communicates. Like that's how she communicates half the time. It's not even through words, but with like, like stuff like that. So, it is like there's like general thing. I'm like, okay, air, swords are the suit of air, intellect, communication, that kind of stuff. But like, and then once you have all the different cards together, you're like, oh, but this is maybe there's a miscommunication, but because there's a pentacles in this, I think that communication problem. Like I read for somebody recently, it was like the five of swords, and then there was some kind of pentacles card. I was like, there's probably some sort of miscommunication in either work or family, because like the pentacles is the suit of the material and like the earthly. Actually, and you said something recently that was great that plays into our Knight of Pentacles example, which is the pentacles are the slowest suit, which I was like, wow, I didn't. Yeah. Never thought of it that way. Like, that's wild.
It's the characterizations I have for the suits are funny too. So, like you were just saying, the swords are air. It also can mean summer to autumn, or it can mean weeks and months. Like this, so the pace is weeks and months, right? Compared to the wands. So the wands are fire, spring to summer, days and weeks.
Fast paced. Yep. Yeah. Suit of creativity and passion to me.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. And yes. Cups, water, autumn to winter, and about like months plus. So it can take like months.
Slower.
Then pentacles is earth, winter to spring. It can take 6 months to years. Is how. And again, I'm getting all of this kind of just from what I was taught in my tarot class. I want to make sure that Saray gets the acknowledgement he deserves here, because I learned a lot from him and how to read tarot for myself and other people better. So
shout out to Bridget at Birdie Tarot for me. I love her.